Perfect. Right, everyone, welcome to the last session at the Creativity Stage, day 3 at MadFest. I'm your host, Mace Al-Ansari, and I am so excited and proud to welcome Lisa from Digilearning. We've got Mike and we've got Chris to have an intimate one-on-one conversation on social mobility and identity. Over to you guys. Enjoy.
Thank you for that introduction. So we are going to talk about the Dear Future Me, and it's really interesting. The last month for Social Mobility Month, I share my story a lot, mainly because I want other people to realise that they can do it too. So especially my young people, but also for other people who are probably in our industry and a little bit older, that we came from an era where you didn't share your story. You were ashamed of your story. If you grew up poor, you sort of hid it. You grew up on a council estate, you hid it. If you spoke like you was from South East London, you definitely had elocution lessons. It was just normal. So we are going to delve deep into conversations about, what makes you tick, but how do you get where you get to from using your adversity as well. So I would like to introduce two amazing people. We have Chris Kenna, who is phenomenal. He's a brilliant leader who's going to share some of his story. And Mike Anthony, who's also phenomenal. So we've got some brilliant people. I'm going to let them tell you a little bit about what they do. So Chris, could you say what you do and what your company is and what you're doing at the moment, please?
Yeah. So I run a media and tech company. So media side, we sort of have 5 TV channels that broadcast in 70 countries and about 12 magazines.
Just really small then, yeah?
And three production studios, so one in Manchester, one in London, and one in Jamaica, in Kingston in Jamaica. And then we've got an AI company that sits on top of that. So instead of normal TV channel broadcasting one channel and 1 million people have to watch the same thing at 8 o'clock, ours gives 15 million people a day individual channels based on their preferences. So the AI makes the channel and chooses the content based on what you've read in our walled garden magazines, basically. And so, yeah, that's it, really.
Mike, what do you do?
Hi, my name is Mike Anthony. Some of you would know of the name Rampage from Notting Hill Carnival. We launched One Extra, worked at the BBC for 20-something years. In fact, One Extra was built off of what we did at BBC London. Been DJing, promoting artists, was the first to bring over Snoop, Dr. Dre, SWV, yada, yada, yada. Every artist under the sun. We run the biggest stage at any carnival in the world. And I'm kind of not semi-retired. I'm enjoying life. But I came from a place where none of this existed. None of this. Absolutely. MadFest, talks. There was no clubs. There was no legal radio. There was absolutely nothing.
Gordon Mack's going to be here later.
Oh, I've got a great story about him.
Yeah, I bet you have.
So my journey is kind of like from trying to find something which didn't exist to where we are now. I'm working with some of the biggest companies in the world.
Yeah, I love that. And it's really interesting, actually, because I've been lucky enough to have the trailblazers around me, and I think that's what's given me, like we were talking before, the understanding that things are possible. Because when Kanye King, for example, is a very dear friend of mine, and when you see a woman that's taken something like MOBO Awards from 30 years ago, and the fight this woman has in her is just astounding. Like, she walked into a room with the Brits and said, "Shall we make a hip-hop category?" And they laughed her out the room. And that's hence her going and creating her award ceremony. What she's reached and what she had to fight against is just unbelievable. Like Mike said, you couldn't see what you could be. You were creating what you could be. So it's really interesting, and I feel very proud and very lucky to be around trailblazers like yourself, Mike. And Chris is a trailblazer as well, obviously, but he's more mate. Right, what does identity mean to you, Chris? And how has yours evolved over time? Because I know you've changed, you've had to conform with your identity over time as well.
All right. Yeah. Well, I mean, I stayed black the whole time, but...
Really?
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, like, there's different levels of identity
Yeah.
in there. Like how do you see yourself as well as how do other people see you?
Yeah.
It doesn't just based on color or religion or sexuality or anything like that. But mine's changed a lot. I mean, so I was brought up as a kid in and out of care. Towards the end, just in care in a children's home. So I pretty much shared my home with 22 other kids most of my life. And then joined the army when I was 17, joined the British Army. And I was in the army till I was 27. And so they were two different identities. Like, I got in a lot of shit when I was a kid. And the reason I joined the army was because we said we were going to be honest. All right, so.
Be honest.
Greggs didn't used to cook the pasties in the shop. They used to drop them off at 6 o'clock in the morning, and then that was how Greggs. And I was up north at the time, and me and my mate were walking back to the children's home, and we'd had a few joints, and they dropped off these hot pasties, and so we decided we'll help ourselves.
I think that was pretty standard in the 80s and 90s.
So anyway, and stupid me, because I wasn't bad, I suppose, or like things like that bothered me even as a kid. Don't know why, I was soft. So I wrote a bloody IOU. I didn't tell my mate, but I wrote an IOU, and I wrote my fucking name on it. And so they just put me in the system and then come to the children's home, raided our room for pasties. They did, they raided the room, took me away. Next day, I was in court, and you go to a magistrate's court, and because you've got no parents, you have a thing called youth justice that goes with you to act as your parent. And the youth justice on the way into the court was said, like, they've got a new scheme, and I can keep you out of this. Is about my fourth time of getting arrested within a short period. So they were like, I can keep you out of jail, but you're going to have to join the army. And so I did. Basically, I said, yeah, whatever. The army will be easy. I'll do it. And then so we went in, and before they do like a thing called sentencing, they were like, we'd like him to go and do this thing with the army. And then I ended up going and joining the army. And so that was sort of like the first identity. The first one was I hated everybody because I just I watched you all have your parents and parents' evening and people turning up, and even sitting on the bus and watching like a guy with his dad and just talking would just annoy me because like, why didn't anyone want to do that with me? And I didn't choose to be born. And do you know what I mean? So like just all these things were just like making me mad all the time. So yeah, they were sort of first two identities. Then I obviously in the army that I just got into that. And really enjoyed it. Got married, had 2 kids, and joined SF. So sort of, I was based in Germany, got married to a German, had 2 kids in Germany, and then came back to the UK. And then, I don't know if you have watched Who Dares Wins, then, I went to Hereford, did the actual version of that, and then was in Hereford for 3 years. And then I went to Iraq, went to Afghan, I went back to Iraq, and then unfortunately I came back from Iraq asleep in a coma. And so when I woke up out of the coma, I had another identity thing where I was like, I'm not too sure if I'm really that into girls, to be honest. No offense to girls, but... So that was another life-affirming fucking change, which the army said was just a knock to my head, so honestly, for about a year. And so, yeah.
Yeah, I think, look, I can definitely relate to the angry thing as well. And actually watching, I find it really interesting as a society, if you're middle class, generally a white person in this country, you definitely won't go to prison. I watched so many young black boys who didn't have parents as a kid, and that's why that led to me creating, part of it was the journey of me creating Digilearning, was watching like my mate Colin, who was 14, didn't have a mum, didn't have a dad, well, had a mum, but, bless her, she didn't have the support to be a mum, and have like all of these siblings. And then, him and my brother, they robbed curries. And my brother was lucky enough to be the white boy on the staircase, and my mum knew a lawyer. And poor Colin, he didn't have that luxury, so he ended up in prison. Now, how can we be putting young people in prison? And especially, when you look at the stats for young people from the care system, I mean, for me, in this country, it is the biggest travesty, and we should be ashamed of ourselves, because how can 50% of youth offenders prisons, and they are prisons, how can we have 50% of them have come from the care system? That is the biggest failing of our society for me. Mike, would you be able to answer that question as well? So what does identity mean to you, and how has yours evolved over time?
Mine is so far the other way. Jesus Christ. But we're being honest. I had what I call 3 kings in my life and a queen. My 3 kings, my uncle, my dad, and my brother. All 3 were in the music industry. So my dad had a recording studio and a band. He played with the Fifth Beatle and toured all around Europe and so on and so forth. My uncle had a very successful band in Europe as well, and an agency. My brother was a music collector. My uncle has a sound system called Rap Attack. If you're old school, you know who Rap Attack is from back in the day. And my mum, my queen. So I had a very, very good support structure. So it's the other way round. So I wanted to do music from when I could grow. I just saw music all around me. I would do my homework in the recording studio at my dad's. I'd go from Clapham College, which is now Francis Xavier College, go to my dad's recording studio. He'd be rehearsing downstairs, and I'd be next to the tomato plants that weren't tomato plants with these funny UV lights growing in the corner. Did I say that? That's too loud. Okay, too much. Okay, so...
No, we love those tomato plants.
And they kind of guided me. My mum actually showed me what hard work was. Because my mum and dad split. And I remember one year my mum did 1,100 hours overtime to make sure I didn't get food stamps at school and stuff like that. And when you've got a mother like that, it's just incredible. You almost feel like there's nothing that I can't do. Obviously, back then, she wants me to be a lawyer, doctor, solicitor, whatever. I'm not doing that. But I'm following now my dad, my uncle, and all that kind of stuff. I want to make music. And of course, there's no legal black music stations. There's no black clubs. There's nothing for me. And I'm like, well, I'm going to do it. So I went to Carshalton College, got expelled, got kicked out. So my mum did what, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, send me to my uncle in Switzerland. So you sent me from one music man to another music man. But the difference is this, which helped form my identity. I had never seen a black man with a Ferrari.
Oh, wow.
My uncle had a Ferrari, he had a Mercedes-Benz, he had a company. And you see it on TV, and even then on TV, you didn't really see it much back then. But to actually touch it and know that's a black man that owns that people have respect for. And Switzerland, where we went to, was spot the black man, really. Yeah. If you was black in Switzerland and in Europe, you were either a stripper or in the music industry or a cleaner. That was it. When I got there, I then discovered that my uncle, with his wife, owned the second largest music agency called Music Service in the whole of Europe. I didn't know this. So my mum had sent me happy days for me. I was supposed to go for 3 months punishment, and I got there and then stayed there for 3 years. Wow. And I met Nina Simone, I met Tina Turner, I met James Brown, because they went through the agency. Yeah. I'm sitting at dinner at my aunt's house, and there's a woman with an American funny accent talking. Didn't notice Tina Turner, she didn't have the wig on. So I'm like, it's funny, I just called her auntie, whoever. So I'm surrounded by this, and what I realized there was, you worked at a club, you DJ'd for 6 days, 1 day off. 6 days, so I'm like, this is a job. When I came back from Switzerland, I said, I want to do that in England. Yeah. I've just experienced 3 years of a 9-to-5 DJing job. So these experiences, got my brother's records, my dad's influence, being in that environment and DJing and touring all over Europe, Austria, Italy, Switzerland, France, all around Europe, constantly, and this is back in the late 80s. I'm on like 3,000 a month, tax-free, in the 80s. That's ridiculous money now. Come back, met up with my mate Richie, and we formed Rampage. And then again, we're in this situation of how do you define identity? And the one word that kept coming to my mind was legacy. How can I create a legacy? I drive past these statues of Winston Churchill everywhere and Haig everywhere and all these generals and Nelson's column. That's their legacy. What can be my legacy? So when you look at some of the stuff, and we look at One Extra, and we look at Carnival and Notting Hill Gate, and we look at the shows that we've done, I'd like to think I've somewhat cemented part of a legacy. Even having the first woman DJ was in Rampage. We brought her through. We wanted a woman because there was no women out there. 1990, we stopped having smoking in our house parties. Smoking ban came in, God knows when, but we'd already done it. So there's things that we were doing that we didn't know what we were doing that helped create who I am and the identity and have the confidence to be able to speak to big companies. Because I'm looking at these big companies, I'm like, well, you're just like me. You eat shit and sleep, don't you? Well, so do I. So just that you run Amazon or you run Adidas, well, I run Rampage. So let's work together.
Yeah, I love that, Mike. And I think that is something that is really important. And I suppose because myself and Chris, like Chris's journey's extreme, but creating that community and for us to be there for the young people around us to ensure that they have what Mike grew up with, that's why I do what I do, because I want them to be able to be inspired, but also to have some advice and to have someone they can believe in and know that we will have their backs and that we will help them. So, Chris, was there a moment when you first realised you were navigating the world differently from others? I'm pretty sure there was.
Oh, every day.
Yeah. Isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Gets a bit exhausting sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, my brain's not so good anymore. So I have epilepsy now and take a lot of medication for epilepsy. So my brain, like my sort of recall of the past isn't so good. So let me just talk about recently. You know, we have this thing. I think I'm a pretty good boss. I just don't think I'm a good leader just yet. Because there are two things. Being a boss is you can go in and you've got a direction and you can say, this is what we need to do, bang, 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 and go. And I've built a couple now of medium-sized companies, and now this company, we're going to float in 2 months. We're joining a SPAC, so we'll be on the NASDAQ in a couple of months. So not too bad for the kid without parents. But leadership has been something that I've struggled with, just because I learned all my leadership in the army, and you don't need to, and I hope I don't say this un-PC, but you don't need to worry too much about feeling on the other side when it's in the military, because it's just lives, and it's just a task that needs to be completed, and and I've had to rewire my whole brain to think differently, and have a lot more empathy, and all these things. I've had to learn them. Then also, there's two things. One, within, I've never met him, but the dad or the sperm donor was Jamaican, and the other one was white. I've just gone through a recent thing where, so my biological mum died 2 and a bit weeks ago, and so I thought I've never had a mom, so why would I be fucking asked about this lady that gave me up dying? And it hit me hard, like, for the last couple of weeks. Like, just, now there's no, I don't have any time to have a mum now. Do you know what I mean? Even though I'm 44 years old, and if she did turn up right now, she would have a lot of pocket money to stump up. But no, it was just, and so, I don't know if I'm really articulating it correctly, but just, you've got this thing where you're doing well. I'm sure you've had this as well. You're doing well, and everybody's seeing that, and then because of the communities we're from, we've got to keep at that standard as well. You've got this thing that when you're doing well, it normally means you've got a shitload of stress on you. So trying to maintain good leadership qualities is hard. And, I'm always learning and commending and don't mind being called out when I fuck it up. But then over here as well, you've got life. And everything that got me to this point, that drive, that being able to stand on stage and give talk about my life, and you're interested enough to not walk out. If anyone walks out now, you're going to feel bad, but you're going to stay, that's then I've been able to build a career on, and then build a business on that career. All of that stuff is actually, although it's just a 40-minute on stage here, it's actually a lifetime of fucking trauma. Do you know what I mean? That I've still not really actually dealt with, and I didn't realize until, obviously, the person that gave birth to me, and and just all of that is just.
And I think people usually as well just see the social media pictures, so they think, oh, they're away, they're having fun again.
Yeah,
they don't realise like the stuff and the late nights and how much you've had to fight for where you've got to, Chris. It's tough. Yeah.
And even the company success has come with, and there's a few people in the room that'll know, like I got chased out of America a few months ago. So I've been living in New York for the last 2.5 years. I set up an office in New York. I went there on a trade mission from the UK government. And then just overnight, basically, there was an executive order that banned the word diversity and stuff. And also, next to that executive order was a list of all foreign companies that are bringing DEI into America. And my name was on that. And so every day I get about 300 death threats. If anybody wants to see them, I'll happily show you what our inbox. So what we had to do was, we were called BA Diversity Media. We had to change the name, shut that down, give that to the police, and let them sort it out. But whilst I was there, we had the FBI come to the office, and I said, I'm getting these death threats. That guy had just shot somebody about 3 weeks before, outside the Hilton, the CEO. So I'm like, I'm a little bit nervous. And they're like, oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Kenna, you're a foreign national. We'd suggest you go home. And that was all they would say. It's like, you should just go home. So I moved back to Manchester at Christmas. Best thing I ever did. You should, if you haven't been up north, Manchester is popping right now. It is. It's absolutely unreal. But so there was sort of that side of it as well. And then that has a knock-on effect, because, we work with young creatives, and one day to the next, your email's turned off and you're not allowed back in it now, because Greater Manchester Police is doing a big investigation, so they've locked the email. So people are trying to get in touch with you, that, creatives with outstanding invoices and stuff like that. They can't get you because you're not, do you know what I mean? And it just keeps building on, and it looks great at the top. Well, it looks great looking at the top. I don't mean that arrogantly. I mean, your bank account's great. It's just the rest of your life that's shit.
Mike, you said you graced Switzerland, and, being probably the only black man in a lot of rooms at the time. So was there a moment when you first realised you were navigating the world differently from others?
Again, this thing, my skin color kind of exposes a lot. I actually live in Florida. So listening to that story, I know exactly what he's talking about. I'm in the deepest south. I'm 40 minutes from the orange man's house. So
there's a cardboard cutout somewhere. I think it's in the female leaders lounge that you can go and attack and put post-its on.
Yes. You hit racism in your journey at different moments. And I've been in and out of America for the last 10 years, living there and here. And the most racism I've ever seen was there. Wow. If you're black and in England and think you've seen racism, go live in Florida. You have not seen anything compared to there. I could be one of the only few black men in Switzerland. I did not have racism as much as I've seen it in the US. So literally a defining moment for me has been over the last 10 years. Because yes, I can look at things and look back in time and analyze, well, there was no black clubs or no black legal radio stations. I can understand, okay, how many black people live in England? Okay, that's why it's not. And then the pirate radio stations came through. So all of a sudden you have these these elements, and then there's a black club owner, and then East London became rife with clubs in the early 90s, all the way through the 90s, and then black music became more accessible and became, instead of a specialist music, it became the norm. People don't even look at it as, like, I remember when we launched One Extra, it was the home of new black music. The word black has gone, like it's a swear word. Why? It was a title. Are we ashamed of it? Are we scared of it? So there's moments where you look at your skin color and you think, and you look at your name. And I have an Indian name. I'm half Guyanese Indian, half Grenadian. And you know, you might not get in that door because your name is Indian. And these are the things that a lot of people don't really see. So my attitude with my partners back then was to bulldoze our way through the industry, hence the name Rampage. We said, we are not taking no for an answer, and we are not taking hostages in a musical sense, in a business sense. Stand in our way, and we're going to roll through you. And it literally, that has been our attitude. There's a misconception of how the industry works, and I'm glad there's a lot of sponsors and networking here, because a lot of big companies don't know how to reach that market. They don't know how to engage. They don't speak the language. They don't know who to talk to. They don't even know how to approach. And then you've got young people and young businesses and old businesses within the black and ethnic communities that don't know how to reach up or reach out.
Yeah.
And there's almost a nervousness. Fuck that. Because what I've realized is that people my age now run those companies. So you're looking at back in the days of when I was growing up, you had David Rodigan, Tim Westwood, and all these kind of people. Nah, I'm not trying to be a Rodigan or a Westwood or a Trevor
Definitely
Nelson.
don't want to be Westwood.
No, hell no. I'm going to be Mike Anthony, and I'm going to be Rampage, and we are going to do what we want to do. So a moment, again, on One Extra, they didn't know what to do with us. So we launched the station. Within 1 year, we were the highest listened to show. You could have combined all the other shows together, and our figures beat all of them combined. So they moved us to the weakest spot. Within 2 years, #1 show on the station. Then they moved us to mid-morning, #1 show on the station. Moved us to midday, #1 listenership on the station. So I'm like, why'd you keep moving us? Well, we don't know where to put you. You're not an R&B DJ. You're not a hip-hop DJ. You're not a reggae DJ. You're not a soca. You're not Afro beats. You play everything. So I have a unique, I call it a hidden talent for myself. It's not to brag or boast. I think outside the box. And I said, I don't want to be an R&B DJ, and I don't want to be pigeonholed. Because if those who understand music, it comes in swings and roundabouts. All of a sudden, reggae music and dancehall is hot.
Vibes cartels everywhere.
Wireless is doing Vibes Cartel.
Isn't it?
Like, seriously? So you look at that, and music games, I said, I want to do something different. So I was an avid video game player. I said, I want to do video games on radio. And they were looking at me, what are you talking about? And I'm like, well, the biggest threat to radio is the gaming industry. Because the next generation don't want to sneak out of their windows and sneak in late at night from going clubbing. They will sit with a headset and socialize with a headset. They're not going out no more. Yeah. So we have to compete against the game. So let's bring gaming to radio. So well, how are you going to articulate that? I said, listen, I listen to the Premier League on TalkSport. You know, I listen to them talk about the matches. Oh, it's Chelsea, West Ham, and he's going down the way. So why can't we deliver video games on air like that? Within 3 years, Radio 1 was doing Gaming Week.
Also, Twitch has gone crazy.
Yep. And again, this was when it was all coming up. So we're talking like 20 years ago. And then they were like, well, these ladies here might not play Call of Duty. Some of you might.
50-50 now. Gaming's 50-50.
Now, I said, all right, think out of the box. Chris Brown, he plays video games. Pharrell plays video games. Rio Ferdinand. So all of a sudden, Neo plays video games. Now I've got big artists not talking about their albums like every other bloody radio station does. And an interview with an artist is like a car alarm going off in the parking lot or in the car park. You go and look. Oh, it's an interview. All right, then just play some bloody music and stop talking, which is what Spotify delivers, which is what Pandora delivers, what all the YouTube delivers. There's no talking, there's no interviews. So now I've got people talking, famous people that you listen to, talking about things that we do every day. Sit down and play a video game.
Yeah, love that.
So these are the moments, and I've literally had to create my own pathway using my skin color to my advantage. And I'll leave you this one final thing with, I've had a young lady which we were working with, Minal Patel, who owns a company called Red Tower. I brought her in. She now runs Notting Hill Carnival for me, my stage, for the last 10 years. Because I wanted a woman of color to enter this fraternity. Now she does all the big festivals to prove that a woman can do it. Because there was no women doing it. Yeah. And I remember saying to her in her first year, how much money did you make? She goes, £300 profit in the first year. All right, use me, use the company, use whatever. And it worked. I have a daughter, which makes me think that a woman of color can do what everybody else does. So when I hear him speaking about diversity and so on and so forth, that should be, excuse my language, fucking standard.
Yeah, totally.
Standard. My daughter's in the new Marvel Fantastic Four coming out. She is a programming expert at Apple. Do not tell me a woman of color cannot achieve what I achieve, what he achieves, or the owner of Spotify or Adidas can achieve. Because that's my daughter, and you will never tell her she can't do it. No fucking way.
I love that. And I've got, it's so interesting. We was at an event in Miami Possible, and there was a white middle class guy, and he's like, you need to move to America. It's amazing here. Da, da, da. And I told him I had 2 black daughters. He said, no, don't move here. It's really, really interesting. So I both want you to, we've got to round up quite quickly now. He's like, guys, time. We love you. Thank you. We love production.
We're the last.
They're the bomb diggity. So if your younger self could see you now, what would they say in a quick round up?
Fucking way.
Go on.
No,
That's what they'd say. No fucking way, because it is true. I would exactly that. Yeah, it's so true. Yeah.
I remember. They actually turned my mic off. All right. So I remember, you know, in school, right, when you do the what do you call it? When all the different companies come in, etc. Like careers, that's
yeah,
it,
awful.
right? So I did that, right? There was 2 of us that were in the same children's home that were in our school in the same year, right? And so they said to everybody where to go, and then to us, they sent us to the factory one, right? And there was only us 2 that got sent to the factory one,
Yeah,
right?
I got sent to the nursery.
And you got to think, like, I was born in 1982, so like this was when factories was like piecework, is that what it was called? And it was like you got paid by how many you did in a factory, not hourly rate. That wasn't a thing. So like they sent me over to that. So yeah, and now, you know, it wasn't that long ago actually. I was walking through Manchester, and I seen one of the I think they were the deputy head of my high school, and walking towards me and sort of looked at me and looked down, and I thought, no. So I was like, hey, and it's Manchester, so you can talk to anyone and no one thinks you're weird. So I was like, hey, it's nice to see you. And they were much older than they were back then, obviously. And they were like, oh, Chris, how you doing? You keeping out of trouble? I'm like, yeah, I am actually. Yeah, CEO, just about to IPO. And then I walked off. And I was just like, yeah. Honestly. So yeah. That's what I'd say to myself.
We love that.
The question, look back on myself.
Yeah.
Oof.
What would they be like?
Ask me the question again, because I need to kind of think this through.
If your younger self could see you now,
Good Lord.
what would they say?
I'd like to think they'd be proud of what I've done. Hindsight's a wonderful thing. Of course, there's loads of things would I change along the way. But then sometimes I think, I live by this slogan, I don't fail, I don't lose, I learn. I'd never lose, I never fail, I learn. I learn, that's it. And I'd like to install that into young people. For every ditch you fall into, you're just learning how to, don't worry about it. You're learning, and it's a process. There's things I've learned, even looking back. When my father passed away, I remember showing him a picture of me in the One Extra at Radio 1 in the lift with Damien, Stephen, and Julian Marley and the Marleys. And he looked at me and goes, "Oh, you're with Bob's kids." I'm like, Bob? It's a bit familiar. And I didn't, and then my mind went back, and he goes, "Well, we used to play football in Clapham Common when Bob would come over, and his kids have grown up." And I was like, Jesus Christ, I didn't even know who I'm like 10 years old or something playing football, or 7 years old. And so I look back on my journey, and if I tell people about the highs and lows, every single thing was a learning experience. Getting kicked off of One Extra the first time and then getting called back, I didn't feel down about it. I just shook Ben Cooper's hand and said, "Thank you for the experience for the last 10 years. You know, we launched the station. History can never take that away from me. We were the first voices on a national black music station." Shook his hand and said, "Thank you. Was there anything that we did wrong?" He said, "No, you were professionals." I'm like, "Okay, cool." And I remember saying to Treble T, "We'll be still here when he's gone." And we're still here. And we're bringing young people through. I'm launching at Brixton House a unit for teaching young people to be radio presenters, bloggers, vloggers, editors, researchers, radio presenters, DJs. With the Arts Council, so I've donated all of my equipment to that. I was literally over at Brixton Theatre the other day. We have access now to Roundhouse, because there's only so much you could. I'm not 21 anymore. So if 21,
Really?
No. If 21 can look at me now and think, well, now it's time, I need to give back. It's my duty to give for the next generation to come through. So I'd like to think the younger side of me would look at my ups and downs and think, you haven't done too bad, hopefully.
Yeah, I love that. Could we just give Chris and Mike a massive round of applause? Thank you guys for sharing. You're phenomenal. And it's good to fail, because the only way is up and you learn from it.
And just one more thing.
Yeah.
We're doing Carnival together.
Whoop, whoop.
So
I'll be there.
Yeah, make sure you watch it.
Love it. Yes. We've got a few people in the audience like, I'm there. Thank you guys, and thank you for production. You are phenomenal.